So welcome to Let Me Live My Life, a show about funny, talented nobodies. This is Andre. Andre is not a singer-songwriter. So
I'm not.
We are taking a step outside of the box. So Andre is a painter. It's very it's this textured kind of paintings. And it reminds me of in a totally different way, but like how Monet close up, it's very different. And then you kind of take a step back and it's beautiful and it all makes sense together.
Yeah.
I want to touch your paintings. I won't, but the texture makes me want to touch them.
It's the idea, though. That's the idea. It's by design. It's from a distance, everything becomes very representational, fun, and sucks you in kind of like a moth to a flame. And as you approach, then the idea is that it dissolves a little bit into abstraction.
Amazing. So explain to us your process, kind of technically, and then we'll talk about the emotional part.
So I like to play. I like to play with materials. I love texture. So I build paintings rather than paint them. And the closest thing is likening it to cloisonner, which is a fancy French word for when they play with enamel. And often you have a metal ridge, bake some enamel powder in there, and voila, you have an image. So I will use, in lieu of metal, silicone or acrylic mediums, a little bit of silver, a little bit of gold.
So you'll build up what the picture is going to look like before you add the paint.
That's right. It's like drawing in the lines, except for my lines are 3D.
Cool.
And then you paint in the color.
Paint by number.
Paint by number. Very
Without
similar.
the numbers.
With no numbers.
That talented.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, and fun. It's
That's
more,
amazing.
Yeah.
So you're gonna see. We're gonna put up some pictures of the work that he brought today. It's beautiful and huge, and I would definitely hang it, and I want it, but I can't afford it because I'm poor. But it's amazing. So have you been able to do shows in Vancouver and stuff, or do you just do generally? People just ask you to do shit?
No, I've actually had some good fortune. Actually, I've predominantly the past would be self-generated projects, trying to, it's like gigging, wherever you can gig, right? So wherever I could find somewhere to hang, whether it's like a sort of hip condo unit or something has a beautiful lobby. I've had the good fortune of having spaces like that. For a while there, I had representation in Whistler, which was very good for me. And then most recently, I'm represented with the Komodo Gallery here in Vancouver, which is awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And so then do people, when people see your stuff and they're inspired, they can also probably pay you to just do something for them?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
What does that look like?
Commissions are a
They
big
give
deal.
you an idea? Because I find people are like, write a song for me. I'm like, sure. But then you write something that is actually really great, and you know that artistically it's great, but that person is like a uncultured swine. So so how do you deal with that? They give you certain parameters and then...
It really varies, and I feel like most people, sometimes not unlike myself, people tend to know what they don't like as opposed to what they do like.
Right.
So if you can kind of help whittle things down, maybe give them some tools. I find very often people do have an idea, a scope of some sort, and then it's a matter of trying to narrow the focus a bit. And then also, at the end of the day, you're an artist, so you have to be able to kind of have your freedom too, right?
Well, have you ever had that situation where you spend a ton of time on something and you show it to somebody and they're like,
Yeah. It was one of my biggest learning experiences was actually doing a painting for a very romantic husband who wanted to surprise his wife. This is a little while ago though, so this is in the day where they shared phone number and they shared email. So this was going to be very top secret, and I laid out how there would be a design and there would have to be an approval, and then I would go ahead and then so on and so on. But because I couldn't email him what I was emailing about or call him necessarily without having some excuse, because he didn't want his wife to see it, it was a bit of a communication breakdown. And even though I was under the impression everything was approved, I literally finished the piece, showed it to him, and although he loved it, in the meantime he brought his wife in on the process, and suddenly she wanted to have her say. So all of a sudden it was a mess. It was a total mess. At the end of the day, it ended well, but it was very much a learning experience for sure.
That's tough. Have you ever had a time where you've had to fight for your point of view, or you've had to kind of be like, well, actually...
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty regular thing. I mean, it's nice when people are kind of blown away if they are. That's beautiful. It's a great boost to the ego, but it's, there's always a feeling.
People seem to think they know art. No, I know art. And you're
the best is when something is amazing, most amazing thing, but If it was just smaller. Or if it was just, so you make some small pieces. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. I would love to see that really big though.
Yeah.
It's like, I just can't win.
Lord, no, it's true. I don't know. I mean, I think that people with art, especially, like not musical art, but art like you do, everyone seems to have an opinion.
Oh, for sure.
Right. With music, they do too, but I don't think people can imagine writing a song. Whereas
I can't imagine writing a song.
Right. Whereas
I've tried.
I think I can paint. I cannot paint. I'm gonna put up a picture of my painting. But like, I can't paint. But you think you can. You think maybe I could do something.
Well, it's a first step for sure.
Right, but no, it's like you can't. You can't do it. And so I think that's the difference. Is everyone thinks, because I could probably do something. I probably can make art. You're like, no, motherfucker, can't.
Yeah.
Leave it to the professional.
I've sang and I've made people cry, but in the
like
wrong way.
In like a please stop traumatizing me.
This end.
That's amazing. Well, this picture. So I'm gonna put up the a picture now of his of the one that he brought for us today to look at. Now, explain this to us. This one that you brought today. What is it of? What is the idea behind it?
So this one is actually fairly representational of what I do in that it's highly textured, very colorful and fun.
Beautiful.
It's titled "Feeling Prickly," which is more about of a mental state at the time.
Right, coral.
It's urchins actually are the subject
cool.
matter, but
Got it.
it's purposely dances kind of on the edge of abstraction. So again, if you stand far back from it, you can see almost like a pop art photo rendering of urchins in a way. But again, as soon as you approach, it's puddles of paint.
How do you do that? Like, do you have to keep on like moving back from the canvas like a long way to be able to? Can you
To some
keep
degree.
it in your mind's eye?
I can keep it in my mind's eye, and I have the help of modern technology in that I tend to draw my sketches digitally. So I can also zoom in and out as I
What a
create.
process. How cool. It's very feminine, this one. Like it has like, there's a bit of an, I can feel like the intensity, the passion of it, like the emotion of it. But the color choices, I'm like, it's feminine, but it also has an edge to it, like an intensity. I'm like, yes, I like it. I like it a lot. So then if I were to want to buy this at a gallery,
Well, these days you would approach Komodo Gallery on 6th by South Granville. And there's some lovely folks there, including Katsumi Komodo, who is the director of the gallery. And they would chat with you about works that they might have of mine in inventory, or they would very happily go as go-betweens for commissions, or I can always be contacted directly.
okay, and if someone wanted to contact you,
AndreSerin.com is the easiest way to do it.
Serin.
Or
Now how-
Serin.Andre on Instagram.
Where's Andre?
Where's Andre?
So, how do we know each other?
We had the great pleasure of working together.
Oh my gosh, in arty things?
Sadly, no, but that would be fun. I would totally do that.
Yeah, me
yeah.
too. So, we served together at a restaurant here in Vancouver with a great view. And yeah, so what does that mean? Because we're both professional artists, but we are both servers.
Oh yeah.
So, why is that?
Because consistency doesn't exist in this line of work.
Right. This isn't like the Renaissance.
No,
You're
it's
not a-
and even
you're not-
then I think it's I think even in the Renaissance,
Yeah.
how many names can you name?
Well, right, and they
Right.
probably were, most of them probably were very poor and had syphilis, and it was a tough time.
It was tough. That syphilis will get you.
Yeah, make you blind. There goes your painting career.
Seriously.
Ruh-roh.
Oh, now you got to try singing.
Keep an eye on that. Yeah. So no, it's interesting. Like there's so many artists who serve, and I think it's interesting because you have such a bubbly, like, great, charismatic personality.
Oh, shit.
Calm down. But I always wonder, like, because most artistic temperaments, there is another side to that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then for you, because when people
we are
see
human
you,
after all.
well, yeah, well, you are. But my thing is do you ever go into work, like every time I've ever seen you at work, you're so positive and like so much energy and like I'm so excited to help my guests. Is there another side to that for you?
Oh, 100%. That is, I'm no word of lie. That's a complete facade. Some days it's a little easier to pull off than others, but that's part of that gig. It doesn't mean that there aren't major frustrations along the way and that you feel those and so on. Try not to show them.
Right. Well, and so then, have you had a lot of anxiety about your work as on your journey?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the ongoing goal is to make the work be a sustainable thing. I would love nothing more than to completely live off of creating work, but sadly it's not yet.
Right.
Not
Well,
yet.
it seems like you're on the road, but I think that's what happens is that you get to even this point where you have a gallery and representation and whatever, and people are like, great, I want that. And you're like, this took me how long?
Ooh, 20 years at least.
Right.
At least.
So, and as a songwriter, it's about a 10-year gig before, if you're a good songwriter, somebody picks up something that you're doing or whatever, and you're able to actually be a little bit sustainable with it. Have you ever resented your serving job, or have you ever just been grateful for it and altruistic and positive?
I would love to think that I'm always present and ever grateful, but it's not true. There are days where I absolutely abhor it.
Yeah.
Honestly. Though the funny thing is I enjoy people, and it actually helps balance me out in the sense that if I wasn't doing that job, then I'm a total hermit. Like I'm either with my kids hanging out,
Yeah.
or I'm in the studio, and that's a very lonely solo
Yes.
kind of experience. So
Right. I totally
work
get
almost
that.
becomes socialization, really.
Yeah.
Adult speak, like it's not always the most riveting, but at least it's there.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
you have those good guests that you're like, oh, thank you for your being a good person.
Mm-hmm.
You have those guests that you want to murder them. But generally, it's like you have those kind of like moments of loveliness, and you're like, thank you.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I know that when I first moved here, I had people paying me a salary to do just music,
Oh wow.
and it was great. But it was like,
Patrons.
yeah, I had investors that were like, we think you're choo-choo Charlie. But it was so lonely for that same reason. Like I was maybe in the studio with my producers, or I was by myself. And Vancouver is a really hard place to make friends, a hard place to like get in socially. And so I was just like, this sucks. That's why I stopped taking the money and I started serving. Because I was like, I know that it's not gonna take my creative energy, right? That when you're done a shift, if you want to go, it's like a different part of your brain that you're using. So like you can go and be like, yeah, here's your hot water with lemon. And then you can go home and paint, and you're not exhausted by what you've just done. Right? That's why like when I used to do more like cover gigs, and I used to do more, like I used to teach opera, it was fine. The money was fine, but I just had nothing creative to give. Which is why when I see people like you who your side hustle is something totally unrelated, I totally get that.
Yeah.
Because if you were teaching art, or if you were teaching painting, the idea of being in front of paint all day and then trying to paint in the evening, or you know what I mean? I feel like it's tough.
I do know that I've had that gig. I've enjoyed it, and it's a wonderful one, but it's also increasingly harder to come by. That whole industry has gone, in my opinion, kind of the way of Walmart. It's like, there's very little tenure track action. Like I was going to be a hip young professor and art star, but the gigs last 3 months, and then you're looking for your next contract. It is may or may not be in the
stressful.
same province. And I was like, I like it here. I don't want to go anywhere. And
Right. Are you from Vancouver originally?
I'm not. I'm an Ontarian.
Oh, that's why you have a good personality.
Ooh.
Sorry about it. True. That's so interesting. I see that. And that will be, for me, that will be a high anxiety kind of life. Being like, when this ends, what am I going to do? Especially like because you have kids, right?
I have kids. Yep.
How old are your chillins?
They are wonderful at 8 and 10 years old.
Wow.
So they are developing their independence right now, but they still love dad. So it's like,
that's
yeah,
so
it's pretty
great. So then, does that add more pressure? Or
100%.
Yeah.
I cannot go without paychecks. I cannot. There's just that much more pressure, responsibility-wise.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the perks of being a childless spinster.
Earlier days as an artist, it's like you can learn to just become a little bit more thrifty, and you can
Live in
pare
someone's
things
garage
down.
and-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can't do that with kids. Turns out.
Turns out.
Yeah, they'll take them away from you.
Wow. Yeah, that's so interesting. I can totally see that. And so then, does that probably keeps you on the days that you don't feel like going in to serve?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. You're like, okay.
And it also starts to work its way into studio days, because if it's a heavy week with all kinds of stuff going on, you really just want a day off. But that day off is one of 2 studio days.
Right.
Take the day off, now you've lost, there's just no stopping.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds really intense.
It is, can be.
Yeah. So then does that intensity affect the way that you paint?
Most definitely. I let it out often in the form of color. I can't think of how many times I've thought of beautiful masterpieces that would be these melancholy, like monochromatic deals, and by the time they're done, they are the rainbow exploded because I just
It's just your frustration?
Not just frustration, passion, joy, all of it mixed in, just coming out. Just yeah.
That's a lot. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I wonder about how my life would look different if I had kids, or if I like, especially was trying to figure out if I felt like it was me that had the onus on me to figure it out. I don't know. Artistically, it feels like. Do you ever feel like do you feel like your art is a compulsion? First of all.
Yeah, I've tried to sort of doing away with it is putting a little bit stronger, but put it into the back burner, focus on more responsible things and real jobs and so on. And it just doesn't last because after a little while I start looking at that gig or that job. I've run my own businesses even, and those are all encompassing. And I always had the idea that if it's my business, then I can create the flexibility to have more time for art, but the opposite happens.
Yeah.
Hence why I'm serving now.
Right. Well, no, that's the thing. Serving, pick it up, go in, make your money, go home, you leave it there. It's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it, right? Like when you have your own business, even if you're like, let's say you were doing something artistic, all of the logistics are still on you.
Oh yeah.
Right? So, that's so interesting. And so there have been times when you've thought about like hanging it up or at least making it like more a hobby.
Yeah.
Which I feel like the word hobby is like the F word. Like I feel like the word hobby is like, if someone says to you, oh, what an amazing hobby you have, it's very insulting.
Yeah, well, it's taking the legitimacy from here and just like taking it right off the board.
Right.
It's like, this is no longer legitimate.
Right.
It's just something you like doing.
People seem to think that if you have another job even, that it's not legitimate.
That's true too. Well, less legitimate, right?
Yeah.
It's not unlike having the gallery adds legitimacy for sure. It's part of what I like.
Yeah.
As soon as I say that, well then it must be serious.
Right. Well, it's hard because it's such a big part of your identity, but you also don't want it to be something that makes you an egoic dickhead, right? Like you don't want to be the person that gets very defensive every time somebody asks you about it, which I am totally guilty of. If somebody talks about me as a singer, or if someone is talking about even their own stuff, I have a hard time not being like, I do things, I know people, I've done amazing things, right? And then I think, ooh. You know, it's like the opposite side of that coin. Whereas like the positive part of it is, it's a part of your identity and it's a part of your soul, you know, and it makes your art better and it makes you committed to it. But it also means that sometimes you feel a little defensive in a way that's not cute.
Oh, for sure. I find, for example, just had the great pleasure of visiting my brother, whom I dearly love, and his friends up in Whistler and so on. And it's not that experience, it's just sort of common to the fact where you kind of introduced to a broad spectrum of people in the world, right? And you're like, oh, and what do you do? And inevitably the question comes down to, it's like, I'm an artist. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're almost a person.
Right. Right. So like, so you don't have a job.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So what do you say? So if I meet you, I'm like, okay, what do? You say you're an artist, and then I say, oh, what kind of art do you do?
I say I paint.
Oh, and are you able to make a living at that?
Yeah. No.
Right. Well, that's the thing. What is the deal? I would like to stop the whole, because right now it's so hard to make a living as an artist, especially in Vancouver. Vancouver eats its young as far as arts are concerned. So I would say, like, the legitimacy of the money and legitimacy, that's so hard. Because if I were to say to you, are you an artist? Of course I am. It's my vocation. It's my life. But then to say, does it support you?
I like to say not yet.
Right, not yet. I would agree with that. That's what I would say too. I remember Elizabeth, she wrote Eat, Pray, Love. It'll come to me. I'll put it up here. She says that she never expected her writing to support her. She always thought of it as something that was given to her to support. That, like, you know, as the person with agency, It's been a gift that she supports and she honors, which I'm like, what a lovely way to think of it. I don't think I have that ability.
It is a lovely way to think of it.
Yeah.
It's also probably a lot easier to think of it that way when it is supporting you.
Yes.
Handsomely.
Totally. Well, I think before she was this Elizabeth Gilbert, bing, bing, bing. She, like, I don't think she's ever been starving necessarily, but if you could think of it that way, if you could hold it with more of an open hand, do you think it would be less torturing?
Probably. Yeah. I mean, I think that's like an overarching general life lesson, right? If we could be more grateful, if we could be more present all the time, then yeah, everything would be magical and rainbows and
cool.
More so.
Yeah, no,
that's why it's work.
Yeah, it really is. It's interesting because the people who you see the successes on their social media, you see the lovely things that they do, please understand that there's so much potentially torturous work that they've gone through, either to get there and their level of proficiency, or as far as their mental health, to be able to sustain enough to be able to create what they're creating, right?
Yeah, but it is true that, you know, to be supported by your art is this ideal. It is fantastic. Sometimes I think, though, it ventures into the realm of, like, be careful what you ask for. Because I feel like part of me is also fearful that it could be a bit crushing. If that is indeed your entire means of surviving, being responsible, feeding young mouths, and so on, and what happens if you get writer's block?
Yeah, if the muse just dries up for a year.
Yeah.
Totally.
In fact, it had that recently. Sadly, I went through a separation about a year and a half ago, and everything was, you know, I mean, as great as can be through that process. Strong front, keep going. It was great. It was actually fuel in a lot of ways. That was great. But eventually you tire of that, and I found for a good, at least a couple months, could not do anything, could not think. Brain was not working in that dimension. I was happy to feed myself, to feed my children, pay rent, and that was about as good as I could do.
Right.
And then pull up the bootstraps, and it's like, hey, let's go. What's going on? But it happens.
It must be scary, though.
Very.
It must be to think, like, what if it never comes back?
Oh yeah. It
so
was.
Then what did that look like for you?
A bit of panic and fear, many bottles of wine, and more. But eventually, just the knowledge that there is knowledge, that none of this is really truly dissipated, and maybe it's just a matter of retuning. Maybe it's okay to take a break too.
I think that's so wise. And I think all of us as artists, like, it happens, right? We do go from, like, having these amazing, like, ground swells of creativity, and we feel like this is so amazing. And then you do have those moments where it kind of dries up, whether it's because you just need to be taking care of yourself on, like, a really deep emotional level, or you're struggling with something. I find, at least for me, I can't use pain until it's not in that really visceral, crazy level. If it's really, if my heart's really, really broken, I can't really use that for anything. I may be able to write something that's like, that's terrible, but, you know, I can't.
I can't say that I could use it either. I mean, when there was, like, deep rage and anger, what does that look like? And is that something that you want to
buy?
Want to buy that? You know, now that darkness oozing, you know? Yeah.
No. Probably somebody probably would, honestly. Somebody. But
it's a whole nother niche.
That's so interesting. I mean, yeah, I hear you. I've definitely been there where I haven't written a song in a while, and I'm like, what if that's it? But I think the lesson is, it's not. You have the muscle memory at the very least, and if you've spent your, you know, tens of thousands of hours on this, you know, and you've always been kind of that vessel, it won't happen again. So if you're in that place where, like, you feel like you may never have it again, you may never write a song again, you may never be able to create like poetry or write or paint again because of whatever circumstances, everything is in flux. Everything is constantly moving. It just sometimes takes time, but it's fucking scary in the middle of it.
It is. I mean, it's an absolute high when you're on a roll. I had a solid year booked with commissions nonstop. So it's sort of like one of those, you never had to worry, because I knew for the 2 months in advance that there was work to be done, that there would be some income from it, and so on. And it was like surfing a wave. It was amazing. But then, like the waves in the ocean, it just, you know, that one peters out. Now you got to do the work to get back out there and ride the next one. And while you're doing that, all of a sudden there's fewer commissions. Things get quieter a little bit. Great time theoretically theoretically to recharge and get on with the new
You
batch.
can get out of your head.
Yeah,
Then,
exactly.
yeah, right.
But it can be a bit crushing
The
too.
other side of the creative usually is the crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's like, get out of your head. Okay, sure.
I live here.
How many bottles of wine does it take? So yeah, no, that's so interesting. The thing about being in a creative endeavor is that there isn't a place where you're like, I'm going to get to this place. You're like, that place doesn't exist.
Yeah, not for very long anyway.
Yeah, so maybe you
There are
can
moments.
get there, but
Yeah.
then you're like sustaining it. You're like the pressure of being able to continue to create. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So like we all think, okay, as soon as I get to a place where, you know, as soon as I get to a place where like, okay, I've won a Grammy and like I've sold 1 million records and I'm on these people's records that we're doing really well. Yeah, there may be income, but if people are looking to continue creating, like that's, you still have to continue,
You're
right?
only good as your last piece.
Right, totally. Yeah, no, it's so interesting, the similarities, because I feel like it's just the same part of the brain, right? And you never get to, I don't want to say you never get to relax, because that makes it sound negative, because it is such a gift,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Like, how would your life be different if you weren't a painter? Like, if you, for some reason you weren't painting, what would your life look like?
I often think about that, and I have a hard time coming up with a picture. I think I would probably go crazy. I don't know what I would do. I think that's, you know, still a very present question as far as trying to keep the art, the painting, the creativity going, and because it's not sustaining fully, what do I do? What will I do to kind of help nurture that and so on? I think that question would just be tenfold. Like without it all together, oh my God, that would be scary. I
know.
have no idea.
I feel like it's your best friend?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
No offense to bankers, but I don't think I could be a banker, for
No,
example.
I don't get this.
Like something wise,
But do you
you know?
sometimes envy them though?
Oh, 100%.
Me too.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
simple life of like, go to your job, be content, go to Cuba for a week, a year, go to Vegas.
Yeah.
Like those
Have
people
some good toys.
that like, get a quad.
Yeah, why not? Right? Snowmobile.
It's not like it's very Canadian this conversation we're having. But yeah, like I look at those people and a part of me is like, ugh, and a part of me really envies them.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
contented, simple life. Like
Job
the people
security, you know,
well,
the
even the
growth.
people who serve.
Mm-hmm.
I know people who we've served with and people that I serve with now, who their whole life they just serve, then they spend the money, like they go out and party, then they serve and they hang out, and that's it. And they're okay with that. And I'm like, who are you? Like I don't understand. You know, to me the idea of serving for the rest of my life. No.
It's a little scary.
It is scary.
Not to mention, I don't know how sustainable. Like at some point, it's still a very physical
It
job,
is a
right?
very
So
physical job, yeah.
what happens if you hurt yourself? I happen to also love the great outdoors, you know. I think about it now endlessly if I go skiing, like I just did. I had the good fortune, it was fabulous.
Yeah.
But I'm way more cautious. Way more
But as you
cautious.
get older,
I
you're
can't break.
Yeah, you're
If
like,
I break,
hit a
I'm
tree,
dead.
I'm
Like,
fucked.
yeah,
totally.
there's no safety net.
I know that
If
feeling.
I can't work, I starve.
Well, right. Like I do some walking tours in the summer and I serve. So I'm like, if I broke my leg,
Oh yeah,
what would I do?
yeah. Well,
Right? Like, and you think about that, especially because serving is
cool
precarious, right? Like, okay, guys, on your left.
motorize something.
Yeah, that'd be super. Let's take a Segway on one leg.
Totally.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like that's really interesting how as we get older, we kind of see our frailty a little bit more too. This must be like how big some of your pieces are. It must be quite physical as well.
Oh, it can be very physical. Yeah.
So then the physicality also has to be something that you're thinking about.
I think about it too, and to be honest, it's one of the things that drives me to try and maintain my health as much as I do, because I realize the only way this is going to work is if I stay healthy. As soon as I don't, then I can't do what I'm doing, and I'm going to have to like reinvent myself. I don't know.
Too much.
Yeah.
Can't think about the what ifs of like the frailty of your human form.
Mortality.
But the
it's
thing
scary.
is, like all that stuff seems to kind of work itself out, and there may be a really gross kind of in between period, like as we age, barring some catastrophe. You know. Anyway, that's so interesting. It's so fascinating as artists how much we have in common. And if we can continue talking about, especially the mental health part of it, because we see so much bullshit curation where everything looks amazing and everyone's beautiful and filtered and bullshit. you know, that it's easy to feel alone in
I
it.
think though that is in many ways the role of the artist though, right? Like to expose, discuss, look at the human condition, the stuff that we all share, whether you consider yourself creative or not, we're human beings and we have this spectrum of emotions and thoughts and so on. So I mean that's what I look for when I hear music and song. It sort of feeds that aspect of it, right?
Right, totally.
Visually I strive for it. It can't all be pretty all the time, but then
No.
so it's kind of looking at the spectrum as a whole.
Right. Well, I think being able to see behind the curtain a little bit and know that when I see you and you're serving and you're like, showtime, that isn't all there is to it. It's not like, oh yeah, his life, he's a great painter and he loves like this, everything is fantastic. You know, I think it's important to like understand that like the only way that you can create such rich art is by being a nuanced, emotional person.
For sure.
You know, so I love your work. I think it is beautiful.
Well, thank you very much.
Tell us one more time where people can view it and where people can buy it.
AndreSerin.com is always floating around in the ether. Most recent stuff will be shown on Serin.Andre at Instagram. It's great place to look.
Serin is spelled S-E-R-I-N. Yes. So his stuff is gorgeous. If you're looking for something that's especially like that kind of like the sea life of the Northwest, like beautiful. Oh, I love it so much. So please have a look. He's an amazing human being as well as being an amazing artist. So if you have a space that you want to enhance with something that is timeless,
Good.
thank you.
Nice.
I'm a
Like
songwriter, so Andre is your guy. So look up his stuff. I'm thrilled to call him a friend of mine. And if you're lucky enough to have him as a server, he'll razzle dazzle ya.
That's for sure.
Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
We'll see you next time. Please subscribe if you like the content and ring the little bell. See you next time. Bye.